So I want to go back to the question you had before, which the shareholder register, right?
Okay.
So when you start a company, it's just the founder or the founders, and 2 or 3 of you on the shareholder register, and you should have a really good conversation between you about who's going to do what and who brings what to the company, but that conversation about who gets what is really important, because it's not just a 30-30-30 or 50-50. You've actually got to figure out who's bringing what to the table and who's going to commit what time. So then you tick along, and I would tell people to fight like heck to get money from customers. Even if we have no product, let's go out and sell the product that we're going to make. So here it is on a PowerPoint presentation. Once we make it, how many would you like?
Gotcha.
5. Right, at $1,000 each? Great. Sign this contract.
So kind of like when I put my order in for the Tesla Model 3, $1,500 up front.
Right.
It's actually, and from what I understand, it's just
and you can actually get it back.
That's right.
Right.
But it's pretty smart.
It's refundable, but you are now committed in your head to doing it, and you can take that to an investor and say, hey, I've got 100 people putting down $1,500 each to buy something that's worth $50,000, but you can take that to investors and they can say, well, that's genuine validation.
Correct.
And that you've got something, and off you go.
So you've proved that. Well, number one, you prove that you can sell,
which is really important.
Yeah, and then you prove
the customer thing, but you also prove that someone is going to like this product enough to give you money. And then you do what's called the MVP, the minimum viable product. Those are 3 important words. Viable being the most important. Viable means you can sell it and get money for it.
Right.
Minimum means nothing else. Just the absolute minimum you require to get something out the door.
And that kind of speaks back to that narrow focus, right? That it doesn't matter if it's really super narrow as long as it's minimum and it's viable.
So when Xero started, their first product was horrible. But there were enough people that got it that said, yeah, I want my accounting online, even if it's rubbish, because there's enough benefit in that for me to jump across.
Right.
Clearly, so much better than the alternative, which is just, horrible.
Right.
So
I guess it's probably easier a little bit when the alternatives are really horrible to have that minimum viable piece sorted out, right?
Yeah, often the alternatives in the technology game are pen and paper or spreadsheets. So people are making software as a service products to replace that. So once you've got the MVP and you've got those sales, and then and you're working for as little as you can. And
what you're saying is at that call it the startup phase, where you've produced this minimum viable product. Where does the shareholder fit here? Are you talking about not paying yourself anything?
Yeah, I strongly encourage founders not to take investment until they've got a business.
Right.
Because if you take investment early, so if you've got an idea and you say, hey, Lance, I'd like to get some money, I'd say, sure, I'll give you $100 for half the company.
Gotcha.
Right? Because that's how much it's worth.
Yeah.
If you come to me and you say, hey, I've got this idea and we've made a product and I've got pre-sales of $100,000 and it looks like that the price is going to be this and here's what the product is, but I need $300,000 to build the product. Well, you're more likely to get something out of someone. You wouldn't get it from us, but you're probably going to be giving away half the company again for that.
Because no one's you're not dealing with a schmuck on the other end who's going to basically pay you to pay yourself. Well as develop something.
Sometimes you are dealing with a schmuck. So let's talk about that. So people can make bad decisions because they're poorly informed or don't really understand what they're getting into. So, for example, I might be someone and I've heard some investors say this, I bet on the people, right?
Okay.
And so they give money to a person, but the idea was lousy. The product was lousy. Their route to the customer was lousy. The business model was lousy. So you can't just look at the person.
Okay.
And ditto, they say, well, I look at the product. Yeah, but no one's going to buy it. Or the person's a crook. And so on and so on.
Right.
And I've seen all of these things, by the way. So investing is work. You can't, if you're an angel investor, if you're dishing out $10, $50, $100,000 checks, the first thing I would say is don't invest more than you can afford to never see again.
Yeah.
Right? Because even if you don't lose it, you're not going to see it for 10 years. At least, because this is investing, this is your money, not someone else's, and be thoughtful about it and use common sense again, right?
You're not just throwing money away and the money will do the work.
Yeah,
it is work because it's the due diligence that you're engaging in.
The folks that invested in, early investors in Apple and Facebook and Twitter and the like, they weren't muppets. They weren't just throwing money around at 1,000 companies and hoping that one would stick, right? They were smart investors that were thoughtful about what was going on and who they were investing in, what the company was doing, and that sort of stuff. And it's the same with any angel investing. You've actually got to do the work to do it. So the second challenge is the amount of work that you require to do may well equal the amount of money that you're giving the company, because you may not be giving the company that much money. It might, if you're giving it 10 grand, you probably need to do
10 grand worth of work.
Yeah.
It's kind of counterintuitive.
You
kind of think, well, the amount of due diligence that you do is pretty much a constant, and the amount I decide to invest, that'll just be based on some other factors. But kind of what you're saying is that if you're investing a lot, you need to be engaged a lot.
Yeah, so we certainly do a lot more due diligence when we're writing larger checks than smaller ones. And most of the larger checks that we write are to companies that we know pretty well. We've invested in 2 or 3 times perhaps.
Just to clarify what Punakaiki Fund does in particular around this.
So we invest in high growth companies in New Zealand, mostly exporting to the world. Most of them are software as a service or technology companies. We've got a water company, we've got a couple of consultancies, that sort of stuff, and OneSit as well, e-commerce. But we look for growth. We look for companies with at least these days at least $500,000 of revenue.
So you wouldn't necessarily call this isn't VC funding. This is more.
Oh, we're VC. We're a VC. We might say that we're growth, but essentially we're playing in VC space.
Sure. Okay.
But
you're looking for established, growing players.
Yes.
Already, rather than taking a risk up front with ideas, you're actually looking at established businesses with good prospects.
We've realised, and we've invested in the not the idea stage, but at the very, very early revenue stage, and we've realised that's the easiest way to lose money for us.
Highest risk. Not dealing with all the facts.
Yep.
Not liquid.
And you just don't know enough, and you might think the founders, and the founders are absolutely amazing, but sometimes you just don't know how this thing's going to react in the market.
Right.